Hi, and good evening, and welcome to the Business of Property. I am your host, Cheryl Leong from Property Development Australia. I begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet and pay my respects to elders past and present. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. At the Business of Property, we interview superstar guests in the property development space that share their expertise, their deals, their stories to help empower, build, and grow our community of property developers and investors. So hello, Facebook land, LinkedIn, YouTube. Give me a shout out if you are here today with us in the comments. And if you're watching the replay, please type in #replay. So we have a guest today, Hong Knowling, who is the founder and director of PPC Urban Consulting, which specializes in urban planning and urban economics. And Hong has been featured multiple times on the Business of Property and previously talking to us about childcare centers. Today, we're going to be focused on another, basically an area, another type of development that has become quite popular over the last few years as well, which is medical centers. So we're going to share, Hong is, she's the expert in the space, some top tips around medical centers and investments. So without further ado, I'd love to have Hong come down and join me on the Business of Property dance floor. Hello, Hong.
Hi, Cheryl. How are you?
Very, very well. So, Hong, great to see you again. So excited. The last time we had you here at childcare centers, there was so much value in there, and that's why we're like, Hong, let's talk about medical centers, because it's definitely something that we're seeing as becoming quite popular in terms of development type products. So, I love for you to be able to share with our audience today why that's so. How do we assess good sites? And I know you've got some case studies to talk about as well. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Excellent. All righty. So let's dive into it. I mean, just really on a high level, Hong, why has it become, and it seems, and I may be wrong, it seems to be quite sort of the flavor of the month. Apart from childcare centers, medical centers are becoming quite popular in terms of development product and a build to hold. Why is that so? I mean, has there been some change in the market recently, or have people just realized that it's a really, really good high yielding investment?
It is a very secure and good return on the investment, because once you find a tenant, and the tenant will be expected to make a good profit. At the moment, based on the industry report that we have come across, their profit is about 30%, which is really high. And
Yes.
the healthcare remained very resilient during the COVID, or even growing, because everyone needs to go to see doctor. It never goes away. We need to
Yes.
look after it. And we all get older. The baby boomers are getting older. And for the age cohorts of 65 plus, and they require a much greater attention or medical treatment. And that's where we are leading to, basically. It's a growing industry in the summary.
Yeah, and is it specifically sort of specialists that we're talking about that are looking for rooms to lease out? So we're talking about, orthopedic surgeons. Like, is there a particular trend towards a particular segment of the medical center, medical industry that's requiring this sort of product more than others?
Healthcare is very complicated system. And when we talk healthcare, you're right, Cheryl, that involves, it could be a specialist center, could be a family GP clinics, right? Could be allied health, physio, for example, or dentist. And could be a day hospital or acute overnight hospitals, right? So they could very varied. But with the aging population, with the increasing number of older population, and the care level is increasing, across the board, doesn't matter which specialties you are in, the healthcare demands remaining very strong.
Yeah. Okay. And then, like you said, there's some really strong drivers there, particularly with an aging population, which also, because people are living longer, that however may not necessarily be living healthier lifestyles. Yeah. So we've got lots of aches and pains and replacements of bits and pieces, which is why there's sort of a growing need for specialists as well. That's
right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But today, I suppose we focus on medical center, the general family GP clinics.
Okay.
But having said that, it has been a growing trend for larger clinics and integrated clinics where the building or the facility may provide other allied health, for example, or specialist services together.
And I think that's where, you know, when you talk about medical centers versus childcare centers, everyone sort of has an idea of, okay, childcare center, I've got a location, lots of children. Whereas with medical, it can be quite varied, because like you're saying, this could just be GP or a combination of GP and allied, or a building with all specialists in there as well.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Some possibly with day surgery facilities, some not. I'm not too sure, but I guess there's different levels of types of medical. So, all right, exciting.
There will be internal, external competition as well.
Yeah.
There's a pros and cons when you do different models. We need to work through what's the best model to give the most return, the highest return. But healthcare is way more complicated than in the other sectors.
So not for the lighthearted, we're saying. Yeah, not for the light. So it's not just how many kids are, how many old people are around, or, people aging or whichever. There's a bit more research that needs to go into. Okay, and I think I'd like to understand what type of research and assessment that you do for your clients, so we can really, our audience can really see and understand how you can help them as well, if that's the path that they're looking into. Alrighty, anyone that's watching, definitely stay till the end, because there's Hong will be sharing some case studies, so if this is an area that you're really keen to understand, you can see how it's being applied to a particular case study. Why don't we kick off, Hong?
Sounds like a good plan.
Again, I encourage everyone to ask questions and make comments below. I'll read them out to Hong if along the way. So the more questions that you have, the more we can keep this going forward as well. Awesome.
All right.
I'd like to hear as well, whoever's joining us, who has developed a medical or healthcare center. Pop it in the comments.
Okay, good. So you can see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Excellent. All right, let's go quickly as our today's presentation outline. And firstly, we will be talking about how we could help you, and I will explain to you who we are and our credentials, and this will explain to you why you should trust us. And then I will be talking about industry trends and issues and factors that drive the demand. Lastly, we will be talking about some key considerations that will influence your investment outcomes. For example, what matters are important to healthcare operators. We will have a case study right at the end, and that will just sum up our discussions today, basically.
Perfect.
Who we are. PPC Urban has a team of town planners and market researchers, and we aim to help you to grow your portfolios and expand capability and wealth. And our mission is to make property development investment easy and profitable. But the question is how, right? How we do it? We basically see ourselves is to help you to identify and manage your risk. And the risk comes from a market risk, the design risk, development approval, and the right location, the site attributes, all we're doing here is to help you to scale your development to avoid under and over development. And most importantly, we'll help you to secure a tenant, because tenant wants to know whether their business can make a profit or not as well, right? And how big. So that's all it's about. My name is Hong Knowling, as Cheryl explained to you. I have 15 years experience in property development and working across public and private sector. I'm a town planner by trade, and I do a lot of development approval, master planning, rezoning, and I work in Victoria on that town planning, delivery town planning projects. I also specialize in market intelligence, try to help the clients, as I said before, understand the market opportunities and where to specify for the operators, how you could design better to minimize the operating risk and also to maximize the return on the business. And that will also inform your design parameters as to what products you're looking at. Are you looking at, for example, healthcare, a medical center? Are you looking at 5 GP clinic or 10 GP clinics? Or are you looking at 10 GP clinics with allied health or just a super GP clinics? Yeah, so lots of mix we can do here, but what will give you the most return and with a reasonable risk, because everything comes with a risk, but we try to mitigate your risk for you. So that's who I am, and I have we have a small team, and I myself is one director, and also Troy is another director. We work very closely. We work Australia-wide. You can see there's a bar chart on the right-hand side, the barcode. I'm offering an hour of my time to meet 3 lucky viewers to discuss your project. If you think we can add value to your success, please get in touch, and then you can just put your camera over the barcode, and you will find a web link, and that will direct you to a form, and that will take about 2 minutes to fill out, basically.
Yeah. So basically, that's a free consultation with you, assessing a site that you might have.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or add the value to your already design process. We can help to look at it. That is the value we can add to you, basically. And as a thanks to Cheryl the opportunity to present.
Thank you very much. I highly recommend, if you do have a site that you're looking at for potential medical, take up the opportunity. We've got a question here, Hong. As a commercial buyer's agent, thanks, Cameron. I find medical or allied health properties tend to attract a stronger price, lower yield than other commercial property sectors. As the mum and dad investor price point of, let's say, under 2 million will price medical. Similarly, a retail property with an ASX listed tenant attracts a stronger price but lower yield. Right. Okay. So basically, because I think what Cameron is saying is, and that's interesting, because at the 2 mil, the sub 2 mil, I think we're starting to see some lower yields anyhow, because there's so much more competition in the commercial property space as well.
Yeah.
I think that's
the reason they attract high price is because healthcare is considered as a low risk profile business. And lots of investors that have a tenant, healthcare tenant, basically.
Yes.
As compared with retail, and as we all can see during the pandemic, the retail market was a bit soft, but healthcare also remained very strong and continue to grow. So there's a pros and cons involved, and I can take the point. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Because once we will have some discussion later on about the pricing, about the difference between the retail market versus medical investment. Yeah, we can touch on that in a second.
And also, I guess because it's an essential service, whereas market factors
Correct.
don't impact it as much. Yeah.
Yeah, essential service, and the government is support like Medicare has Medicare funding is really another driving factor for the revenue growth, and the Australian government just reintroduced indexation to the Medicare funding, and which will ultimately increase the volume of the patients and the consultations and of the revenue growth, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cameron supports it, saying, yeah, medical stands out as a preferred sector and seen as very secure.
yeah, that's right. And funny thing is that because if a doctor they want to open their new medical business, they can get 100% loan from
Yeah, right.
from
Okay,
every
I didn't
bank.
know about that.
Yeah, because they see there's no risk basically.
Mm, mm, mm.
Yeah, good question though, Cameron. Okay, let's continue.
Let's keep going.
Okay, industry headlines. Um, so as we talk about touch before, Medicare funding has increased over the past 5 years due to bulk billing becoming more prevalent. Bulk billing has generated strong growth in patient volumes over the period. As bulk bill doctors, GP consultations are more accessible to patients due to limited out-of-pocket cost. The Australian government recently restored indexation on Medicare rebates, which will support revenue growth over the next 5 years. Aging population. Underpinned by the baby boomers generation, the number of persons aged 65 or older is set to almost double over the next 2 decades. The growing number of older Australians will drive increased demand for GP service and other healthcare services, not just GP, across the board. A very typical case we have seen is the total. So when we do the needs assessment, right, Rachel, as you know, we also look at the local health profile of the community, and the the one we used to measure is how healthy or how often the local community visits GP clinics is to look at on average on 1 year how many visits one person will do in a year,
Mm,
basically.
mm,
And that number, a GP per capita growth is increasing.
mm.
Yeah, the total visit to a GP per capita growth is increasing.
Yeah.
And with aging population, we are not just talk about the number of patients is increasing. We also talk about number of consultation is increasing.
So, Hong, is there some sort of a heat map that shows you that sort of thing? To be able to go, this particular suburb has more people who are older, but also more people who are going to see the doctors more often. Is it that simple to be able to plot it out like that? And if there isn't one, maybe maybe that's another side gig there.
Yes, they are. We include that in our needs assessment.
Yes.
I don't think any consultants will publish that in the public domain for this information. But yes, you're right. And there's data, and we can see the trends.
Mm,
We
mm,
can, yeah. In
mm,
some area, for example, wealthy area, they have a lower visit to GPs, number of visits to GPs, as compared to area with social economic disadvantages
mm,
areas.
mm,
Yeah.
mm,
So this area that to be careful where you invest.
mm.
But certainly, yes, there's data for it.
Mm. And I also wonder because when you say sort of more affluent areas, I also find, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there tends to be more sort of a skew towards alternative health options as well.
Correct.
So natural therapy, chiropractic and alternative health, homeopathy, that sort of thing as
Yeah.
well. So that will be, I'm interested to find out, when you're talking about medical center, how much of an impact that alternative healthcare sector has as well.
The preventive care, we call that in the technical term. So people are more cautious about their health. They will be willing to spend money to treat problems before they become a problem. So and also Crohn's disease is increasing as well, and where lots of people visit GP just to get their Crohn's disease managed or under control. Okay, the key stats. Over the next 5 years, it's projected to have an annual growth 3.1%, and the profit margin is very high. It is about 30%.
So the profit margin for
the business.
For the business of the actual GP.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why it's a very low risk profile, because it's really high. But if you do well, you can get much higher than that. There's an average.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and the trends. So integrated. So we have the industry consolidation is projected to continue, and with larger clinics able to achieve efficiency increases, lower overheads, and greater income per GP. And so it is a trend that we have seen, that bigger or integrated facilities are being built. We also have seen more and more private and mixed billing clinics. So not just the bulk billing centers, but people have to pay to get better service. Higher throughput has allowed large GP practices to bulk bill and attain greater profit margins. High volume of consultation has also driven revenue growth. And again, we talk about older population now. Increase in older Australians will grow demand for GP services and other healthcare services. Industry structure. Low revenue volatility here, good risk profile, and attractive profit margins. And I mentioned before, 100% loan on your business. High industry assistance and increasing. Medicare funding has boosted and will continue to boost patient volumes and the business profit margins. And it's not that hard to open a healthcare business, because it doesn't really, or I should say medical center, not diagnostic imaging service and that kind of business. It's actually required less fancy machines. The healthcare industry is mature everyone would know, but people will get sick and will need to get looked after. Medical services are always wanted, so you never go away. Essential services, as we spoke before. To start a business, competition's increasing. The reason for that is many doctors are willing to open their clinics due to high profit margins. However, there's a little issues here, is that there's a doctor shortage. And we went to the RICGP conference in May this year, and that's been an issue that the government is working on to promote more doctors to graduate and work in the industry, because there's less graduates are becoming GPs for some reasons, which results in the shortage problems. Major markets. People aged 65 and over account for the largest share of industry revenue. Older Australians are more likely to regularly visit GPs for general health checkups, prescription medication, chronic disease, chronic and complex health management plans, etc. So that's why we always look at this age group when we talk about the healthcare.
Yeah, I can attest to that. My parents know our local GP on a first name basis. Know about their children and what's happening in their lives. So yes,
Yeah, yeah. You're becoming a friend.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. How we define a successful investment? I think as a developer, all we do, we are not operate. We can't operate the medical clinics, right? So what we do here is try to secure healthcare operators. Once that is done, and you can, well, good financial return will be expected on a longer term basis. However, leasing process for medical centers is slow. It generally takes about 8 to 12 months to find a tenant.
Yeah.
And then also because economies scale, larger clinics and hospitals, those kind of proposal developments are easier to get tenanted. I think Cameron mentioned about the leasing, the return the year before. You're right. Medical leasing is about, on average, right? Every state is different, every region is different, but on average, we talk about in Victoria, Melbourne, somewhere around 300 to 450, around that kind of range per square meters rate. And in terms of lease term, we talk about new build, minimum 10 years roughly as a guide, plus options. Existing building, 5 years plus options. For retail leasing, you talk about 350 to 450 on average, right? I know the area is much higher than that, since medical, per square meter rate, but the leasing terms much shorter. You normally talk about 3 to 5 years plus options.
Yeah.
But the security in between the two different leasing types, retail has a much higher revenue volatility as compared to medical leasing. And this has been certainly proven to everyone during the pandemic, right? And that's why people is interested in medical center investment.
So, when you're talking about healthcare operator, because I think, compared to childcare centers, and often there's an operator that's a particular brand or so on. Whereas, say, with your GP, often it's it's a local brand. I don't really see a lot of sort of nationwide operated brands for GPs. Is that what's sort of the trend in that space? Are you seeing these types of GPs operating under a particular brand, or is it still quite this is the local GP and that's it?
Very good observation, Cheryl. Childcare, you can see lots of big names out there nationwide. GP clinics, they don't operate like that, and they largely stay based. The reason for that is very hard to manage different clinics at different states, and they're so fragmented within the sector. You don't. If you see a operator, they manage 5 clinics. You say, "Whoa, it's pretty big operators."
Okay,
that's pretty large. I met with a doctor, and then they manage like a doctor operator. They manage 300, no, including the supporting staff, about 300. And I said, "Wow, that's big. That's massive." But for childcare, you manage 500 kids. That's not much. That's normal. So you're right. There's no national operators in place. There are some, but not a large number. Small.
And I'm just sort of intrigued as to why that's the case. And like you said, maybe because it's so fragmented and it's not as easy to, I was going to say control and manage, maybe that's the word. Childcare centers, you've got a bit more sort of that process and everything in place. And possibly that's why it's easier to have it under one particular brand, as whereas with healthcare and medical, it's a bit more fluid, possibly. Again,
Yeah.
that's sort of what I've noticed. There's no sort of one particular brand that stands out.
Yeah. Correct.
Mm.
Correct. But that's a fact, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, okay, so, but how to get a tenant? How to get operators on board? $1 million question, right? And we see that there are three key factors that influence your investment decisions, the investment outcomes. Assuming you are running a business as an owner or operator, will you take out a lease that you are unsure if your business will survive? I think probably answer is no, right? Will you take out a lease at a market rate or higher? The answer is maybe. If I know there's a good amount of unmet demand there, and I know my business will do well, I'll probably pay more, right? Will you rent a new medical center that is poorly designed and it will cost you a lot higher? It will trigger higher operating costs or operational safety issues? The answer is no, right? So it is important to factor those in for the operators before they decide to take out your lease or not. On the flip side, as a developer, you also need to think about those, not only the flip side, it's the wrong way. As a developer, you need to put yourself in their shoes to think about what they think. So all their concerns are your concerns. In addition to that, you also need to know, how can I reduce my land costs? Whether I put the money in, for example, you may cost you 150K to get a town planning approval and then commence the marketing, the leasing campaign, right? But if there's no market for additional GP services, you will be very hard to find someone. Will you still spend that 150K at the beginning? Or
So is it
what
not
else
a
will you
chicken
spend
and egg?
on?
It's a bit chicken and egg, but wouldn't you sort of go, who's looking for a place or who's looking for a center, and I'll build to your needs? Isn't, I know that's what they do with childcare as well. So where do you want it to be? I'll build to your requirements. Is that not the case with medical centers? Hoping sort of the build and they will come.
Um, you wouldn't build. You probably will get a permit or somewhere you can demonstrate your commitment to the operators before you build it. Because healthcare is so fragmented, childcare you can just call all the operators, right, in your region. Are you interested in Upper Side? Yeah, easy. You can, not easy, but easier process. But for healthcare, you need to know their business model, whether it aligns with what you're proposing here. Yeah. For example, you may propose a medical center, say a 10 GP clinics plus online health. And the doctor say, well, how do I know I will survive? I don't find the 10 GPs. Firstly, it's hard. Secondly, would I have enough money? Will I make enough money to keep them there on the job? We don't know. So those people, they want to know, they want you to tell the developer, tell them that's good investment. And they want you to help them to identify all the risk factor, the market risk factor. Yeah. And also the land. We talk about in the second that each individual component, but it is important for operators to understand the requirements of the operators, and then in the meantime, as a developer, you want to reduce your land holding cost and get the building up running.
Yeah.
we often get engaged for the operators to look at the market feasibility. But one thing, the feedback we receive from them is that there's so many, because medical center, you can go into basically anywhere. So you can go into the commercial precinct, you can be in the residential area, right? But which area give you the most return? So the doctors say, I don't have the money and time to look at every single site. Can you tell me which site's better?
Yes.
So that responsibility falls to the developer to demonstrate their site is unique. Their site is the best site for the business that they are doing. Yeah. And
so often, Hong, with someone, when they bring a site to you, is the first thing that you look at is the planning side of things or the market assessment? Obviously, you've got to do the check off that planning from a planning perspective. It's permitted, then it will be assessing and doing the market intelligence as to whether it's a feasible site or not.
The first thing I look at the land attribute. Is it right location or not? Is it access, car parking? Is it close to destinations? What kind of passing traffic we're talking about? And whether there's an opportunity for operator to provide. We call that team-based care. My business partner was saying it's not easy to understand what does team-based care mean. And it's actually, if the patient comes to see me as a doctor, I'm a doctor, I need to refer this patient to see physio. I need to refer the patient to even get a blood test where those facilities are. Are they within the same building where I am now, or they're close by? So these are attributes that I would be firstly checked, the land attribute. And then I probably will check the market feasibility as to is there enough demand and what kind of, I need to quantify the opportunities here. And then what product I'm thinking about. Because and then we're going to come back into the planning rules. What can I put in there? Because you can go big, you can go small, and then you balance that, and then in the middle bit where the question mark is, that's where you need to target as a developer. The way I see is the developer is to choose and establish a platform to enable the future tenants to run an effective business. That's all it's about. For healthcare, for childcare, for any business that you require a tenant. Basically.
That's the secret sauce there. You've got all those three elements. We tick all those boxes. Then you've got the secret sauce for a good medical center investment. That's the goal.
Like exactly. And then beyond that, and then what we do for the operators is look at, now I'm talking about service planning now. Okay, we look at the health profile of the local area. Are we looking at mental health? Are we looking at different things, right? And then we start with the business plan and then doing the number crunching as to whether that, how much they can afford for the rent and then whether the business will survive and with how much to charge the patients. Whether the patient have the fund to pay for themselves or they are relying on the government funded Medicare. So that will be the next step for them. But we do the first cut and tell them this is a good site. And the planning, when I say the planning, the legal, the last one is, and also another is a design. We need to, because we do work with a lot of operators, and operators always complain about the layout that being placed in front of them. Is that operating cost? Is a safety concern, people's movement, patients' privacy. Even I'm a diagnostic imaging services operator. Whether the building is designed to cater for my needs, the clearance, the high clearance is enough or not.
That makes sense.
So there's a lot of things need to be considered into the design. And then, town planning, I will talk about overdevelopment. This if you propose something in the residential area, car parking. So is that something we can address? Yeah. And then also, if we do get to that, our design will need to be more adaptive, facilitating different healthcare business over time. How we manage the expectations of the other operators in the neighborhood. Are we competing with that, or are we welcoming them to refer the patient to this clinic? Yeah, there's a lot of things need to come into play. But the way I describe that is lots of things that normal is what we specialize in, and most of planners, they don't look at the functionality of the design in a way from the end user's perspective. More planning scheme compliance, basically.
Yeah. Karen makes a good point here. He says high growth new housing areas are good areas for greenfield childcare and medical properties, but it can be troublesome to go too big too early in establishing suburbs. It's the only situation where I have seen a GP practice fail. So basically when there are not enough people. And there are lots of greenfield where maybe there's lots of young families as well. So a bit of competition, not enough. And that's a good point. I haven't really seen a GP like
It's more about how much profit they make. They don't. They're very hard to see them fail, but it's a profitability. What kind of percentage numbers you're seeing here? Basically, that's why the government say, you want to run a business, go for it. We support you. Full stop.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of business that, particularly bulk building facilities, they may find hard to operate. They still make profit or minimal profit, but they find hard to operate. Just because the way they manage their clinics is different. Need to get some training on that potentially.
Makes sense. Well, let's dive into some of these factors. I think we'd like to look into a bit more detail. Which one are we kicking off to begin with?
Let's go with the three of them then here.
Okay, great.
Yeah. High contact within key market. The GP clinics are looking for high demand area, just like any other business. Yeah. The supply and demand. If you are in demand, you make good business, you have good turnaround, and then you can ask for a fee. And then also they are looking at the referral networks for the doctors. Who can refer to me? Where I can get the business from? How can I attract new patients and retain them as a repeated customers?
Yeah.
That is a key consideration in my mind. And secondly is a location. Need to be clustered with other healthcare services, or integrating with other services under the same roof. It's pros and cons for each model, but basically they need to be able to service clients with the multidisciplinary teams, basically. And then other is access, need to be easily accessed, need to be convenient, hours of operation, parking, and need to will be close to destinations. Some business models they like to be with the main road, highway, or kind of like frontage, but some business they focus on the foot traffic.
Yeah.
So the business model is very important to different operators. And also we talk about the functional design before, is we need to make sure the patient-centered design. So basically what we are designing is to help the patients navigate through the system well, the building well, safely. This has been a big topic in the recent years within the government, because there's lots of design are not patient-centered, and the system is not patient-centered system. the good designs will help reduce operating risk and the expense. The reason for that, for example, where your treatment room should be located, where your waiting room, how the doctor rooms, how far the doctor can walk to see the patient, where the doctor should report to the front desk, and those matters need to be thought through, yeah. And how do these GP clinics, this doctor GP component integrate with other healthcare components, a business, another business, with the layers after layers to consider. Good amenity, on-site amenity, we talked about before, the access, convenience, and also disabled toilets, and also things need to be considered. Location.
So in terms of access, just going back, access, convenience, close to destinations. Close to destinations, often I think, hospitals, are they good places to be close to as a GP? Or is it that the hospital you just have to look to see whether the hospital has its... Would it be often that a private hospital have its own GP as well?
Hospitals and GP can work together really well. Sometimes can have some kind of competition as well. So when they work well is, for example, when the emergency department is not coping with after-hour service, and lots of service can be treated by the GPs. Low urgent care. I'm talking about not broken bones, things like that. So the GP can come in very nicely, particularly if they deliver extended hours of service. But if you are talking about, but the hospital, they may also have outpatient clinics. They also provide GP services. They may compete with you to some degree. So if you talk about the referral network, so aged care, retirement village, those kind of anchor business will be the primary, will be the one of the key customers to the business. Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent.
Other questions?
No.
Okay, good.
Let's move ahead.
Okay. So this is a little quick case study. So it's about a minute walk. So this whole building is built. It's about a minute walk to the Springwell railway station. It is purposely built medical center, 3 levels plus a ground floor car park. On the market since early 2021. It only half building leased. It's cost to about 2.5 to 3 million to build, and $2.4 million land acquisition. The question is, if you are the developer who making this development, do you think you make a profit? Oh,
I don't know.
Sorry. It's flipping.
We've lost you.
Yes, sorry about that.
So this is, and this is, you're talking about a medical center, a multi-story medical center. So tell me, who is intended to lease this? Because I'm thinking it's an integrated multidisciplinary medical center.
They meant to be, yes, correct. So a couple things here. One thing is that we came in quite late. We did a needs assessment. There is some unmet demand there, or actually I should say growth potential there. But because a part of the building they designed for diagnostic imaging services, but there was not enough demand for that, and the building was not designed. I didn't have enough height clearance, so literally half the building cannot be used for what it's intended for.
Yes.
Firstly, and secondly, because the demand, the growth potential, there's a growth potential for additional GP services, but that was not enough to take up the whole building. So ended up that part of being leased out, but not all. Unfortunately, just sitting there. It's a $5 million plus investment here.
Yeah. So would they have been better off even sort of, instead of making it multi-story, just sort of a one level with parking underneath, and so they've saved on construction costs as well?
Yeah, exactly. Because lots of things you can do. Yeah, you're right. You said you can reduce the scale of it.
Yeah.
To reduce the cost in the meantime, or you change the business plan basically.
So, say for example, in this situation, what was the zoning for that?
Residential though.
So residential, sort of like low density residential, but that's a 3-story with parking underneath, didn't there? Isn't there a height restriction?
It's a growth zone, 4-story growth zone.
Okay. Yeah.
Maximum 4-story. So they went for the maximum, and then it cost them a fair bit of money to just consultancy get building it. Actually, consulting is very small money now compared with the whole $5 million project. It's a very bad investment. Unfortunately, they can do a townhouse development can make more money than that.
Yeah. So that's a painful lesson there.
Yeah.
So the moral of the story is, and like it's not for the faint-hearted. Definitely look at the market intelligence. Definitely look at the assessment of the demand and supply. I mean, this is what we do in residential development. However, they're similar to childcare. We looked at there are quite a few different factors. There's another layer of different factors to consider in terms of operators and all that. However, if you get all these elements right, then it becomes quite a secure and profitable income generating investment. Close to Monash University too didn't do accurate market research on what to build in that location. Yes, it seems like it. And again, did they need to have all 3 levels? Maybe not, and would have saved them some money there as well.
Exactly.
Excellent. That's been really, really, really good, intriguing and fascinating. It's definitely an area that I've been very interested to find out more about as well. So thank you so much, Hong. We've got the special QR code there again. Anyone that's looking for a site and keen to have Hong and her team look through and discuss its feasibility and assess it for you, I'd highly recommend to take up this offer. Cameron says hospital. Yes. PPC Urban Consulting. Check out the website www.ppcurban.com.au.
Consultant.
info@ppcurban.com.au. And not only do you look at medical centers, childcare centers, what else do you also specialize in, Hong?
Specialist disability accommodation, senior living, and we do also do other commercial, medical, residential market assessment, but we particularly specialize in this kind of social infrastructure. So we do hospital too, Cameron, and you're right.
Excellent.
We just finished the 2 hospitals this year.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Hong. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm sure we'll have you on again to talk about another specialist area, because this is, it comes down to when we're looking at due diligence and assessing sites. This is the sort of stuff that we need to look at and to go through.
Definitely. I think the market, the location, the market, the planning, the design, they all are important to look at, and you must get them right.
Yeah. Otherwise, it will be a very expensive lesson to learn.
Yes, correct. Very
Oh, good.
expensive, $5 million. Thank you. Thank you for
Yes.
having
Thank
me.
you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you, Hong. I'm sure we'll see you again soon. It was fantastic.
Oh,
Thank you for taking the
yes, for
time
sure.
to put
Yeah.
that together. And make sure you visit and subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Business of Property, where you can find all our past episodes and you found value in today's show and you want more, hit the like button and get notified when a new episode comes up. So until next time, keep well, stay safe, keep warm, and we'll see you all again soon. Take care. Thanks, Hong.
Thank you
Ciao,
for
ciao.
having me.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, Cheryl.